We made it. It's game week. The Iowa football team gets ready for their home opener against Illinois State. The depth chart is out and some surprises for Iowa football. Scott Dochterman joins the show and Clayton Clark keeps balling all today. Locked On Hawkeye.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. While you're there, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on the audio side, 5-star reviews. It helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate GM. Ultimate College Football HC is a brand new mobile game that is completely free, has no ads, and 100% playable offline. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps LOCKEDONCFB, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Begin your coaching legacy today. We get started. It is game week. So happy for this. It has been a long summer, but the countdown is over and it is game week. With it, on Monday, we got the release of the Iowa football depth chart and the game notes that go along with it. The game notes are fun to look through. Find some little nuggets from time to time that pop out. I know a lot of work is put into them by the SID and everybody involved with that, with Matt Weitzel and company that put that together for each and every week throughout the course of the season. But the biggest thing, certainly for what we do here on Locked On Hawkeyes, is what we're going to see with that depth chart. There are some surprises on there. Now, one surprise to some that it shouldn't be. We've been telling you for weeks that Cade McNamara was going to be the quarterback. And yes, he is QB1 listed ahead of Brendan Sullivan. Now, Brendan Sullivan from the last depth chart that we got, he has elevated and moved up to the number 2 spot, but we knew this was a two-man race. This was these two guys, former Big Ten quarterbacks at Michigan for McNamara, Northwestern for Sullivan, vying for the starting role with the Hawkeye program this year. McNamara, with the equity that he put in, Kirk Ferentz told us a week ago during his press conference announcing the one-game suspension that this was something that was going to happen, and here we are. It shouldn't come as a surprise, the equity that he has in the program, and also the knocking off of the rust. And that's a huge component to this. Cade McNamara, and I believe if I was going to hit the heights this year, if they're going to put together a 9, 10, 11-win season, I believe that Cade McNamara is the quarterback they need to do that. His upside, in my mind, with his best football at this point in time, is better than what they can get from Brendan Sullivan. The great news is they finally have a competent backup quarterback, something that they haven't had for now a half decade plus. You go back and you look at, obviously, Alex Padilla backing up Spencer Petras. And though there are plenty of times that I thought Padilla was a better option, he had good moments, had a good game against Minnesota. There were glimpses that Alex Padilla could be okay. He was not a very good backup quarterback. And then obviously what we saw a season ago when things absolutely cratered with Deacon Hill at the quarterback position and how bad it was. Having somebody in the backup role that has played in the Big Ten, has won games, has done good things, that is a huge step up from what they were a year ago. But in order to be a team that wins 10 games this year, goes 10-2, maybe in the conversation for a college football playoff, I believe that if I was going to hit those heights, Cade McNamara is the guy. Now, I get it. We haven't seen it for the last 2 years. He lost the season at Michigan with the knee injury, lost his job to J.J. McCarthy, and we saw what happened there, and he decided to transfer away, had knee surgery. Then he comes out last season in August at Kids Day. He has a major quad injury, a quad injury that was incredibly impactful to the guy that you saw a year ago. We have not seen a healthy Cade McNamara in an Iowa uniform. Our first glimpse, he got hurt at Kids Day in 2023. And then before the Michigan State game, when he ultimately tore his ACL, we did not see even close to a 100% Cade McNamara. This was a guy that was extremely limited. There are portions of the playbook that he could not even use. And because of that, this is where we are. And this is what we saw from him a season ago. His highest level is higher in my mind than what you can get from Brendan Sullivan. Now, that's not to say that McNamara is a no doubt about it. Lock should be the guy that's taking every single snap this year. Because if it doesn't go well, and Cade McNamara does not show the ability to knock off the rust and get back to that guy that we saw a couple of seasons ago at Michigan, if that doesn't happen, then yes, you do have to go to the other option. You do have to go to Brendan Sullivan because Brendan Sullivan did a lot of good things during August camp. He did a lot of things to at least push Cade McNamara and make it difficult on the coaching staff to ultimately come to the decision that they did. Another question about QB1 and what you do in this situation is if Iowa is controlling this game. Say they're out to a 31-7 lead, 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Do you go to Brendan Sullivan and get some reps? I don't believe so. I believe that this needs to be Cade McNamara. Now, if we're talking even something more ridiculous than that, Iowa's up 45-0. Okay, different conversation there. Cade McNamara needs reps. New offense. Remember, this is Cade McNamara's now fourth offensive coordinator in the last 4 years. This year with Tim Lester, Brian Ferentz before that, Sherrod Moore in year 3, and then I can't even remember who it was in Michigan the year before that. But this is his fourth offensive coordinator in 4 years. He needs reps. He needs time. He's knocking off the rust. Get as much playing time as you possibly can for Cade McNamara, because a week later we know what's waiting, and that is Iowa State, an Iowa State team that's looking to do things a little bit differently defensively this year. We'll talk about that when we get to Cy-Hawk week next week. But that was not alone in the surprises from the depth chart that was released by Iowa football. Well, that shouldn't have been a surprise. I misspoke there. Shouldn't be a surprise that McNamara was at the top. The biggest surprise, I don't think there's any doubt about it, is Kamari Moulton being listed as the starter at the running back position. Now, a couple of reasons for this. One of them is Kamari Moulton is a guy that we saw a little bit a year ago, but he looked small. He looked too small to be a Big Ten guy. We heard that he did the work. We've had a number of people talk about that they anticipated he was going to be a big part of the plan. But you have two starters that have had starting experience over the last 2 years in Caleb Johnson, coupled with LaShawn Williams. Both these guys have done great things in the Big Ten, have had big runs. Without LaShawn a year ago, they don't beat Wisconsin in that game, getting the victory against them a season ago. They needed that big run and really was the difference in that football game. We know Caleb Johnson and just all the talent that's there. You want to see that talent show up, but Kamari Moulton is doing the things, and he's got the ability, maybe the home run threat that they're looking for. Look, Caleb Johnson, I still maintain, is the most talented running back that they have. When you talk about the size-speed combination that Caleb Johnson has, he is the guy that has the total package. I continually hear, though, it's about the little things, just doing those little things right. And without it, it's a guy that's now sitting third on the depth chart. Another reason that this came as a surprise, though, is Kamari Moulton was banged up earlier last week. And because of that, normally banged up, you're talking about a young guy, you're talking about unseating a couple of starters. That was a surprise. Now, we also know LaShawn Williams was banged up here during August camp, and maybe there's a reason behind it, but I still want to see Caleb Johnson. I want to see Caleb Johnson do all the right things because, again, we talk about upside and who has the highest upside. I still believe Caleb Johnson is that guy. We got a few more news and notes to get to. We got Scott Dochterman also waiting in the wings. We'll hear from Scott Dochterman of The Athletic, talk some Iowa football and Big Ten as a whole with him. We get more into the depth chart. Take a look. Defense, a surprise starter to many on the defensive side of the football at the cornerback position. Plus that depth, the defensive line, how's that coming together? Plus some new names on the offensive line. We'll do that as we continue. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Hey, Locked On Hawkeye fans, I want to take a moment and give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game I think you're going to love as much as I do. Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football team to glory. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of the Hawkeyes? Look, I see the comment section. I see you guys on Twitter. Y'all think you can do a better job of Kirk Ferentz? Here's your opportunity. From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? Here's what I really love about the game. You're responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, it'll shape the future and legacy of the program. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go. You can go as you want with Ultimate College Football HC. And of course, we got a special offer for Locked On Hawkeye fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB. All caps, Locked On CFB inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it'll get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com. ultimate-cfb.com, or just look it up in the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. Trent Condon back with you once again here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. All right, let's continue here at the look at the depth chart and dig a little bit deeper. We hit the headliners, if you will, the quarterback position and the surprise at running back with Kamari Moulton. With Caleb Brown not being available in game one with his OWI arrest this offseason, and with it, the one-game suspension that came in, that means a possibility of some new names at the wide receiver position. Your listed wide receivers as starters, and there's three, as we talked about in these last depth charts that have come out. Jarrett Bowie, again, the redshirt freshman from Florida that we saw a year ago. He is listed as a starter. His backup, though, Reese Vanderzee, the intriguing big-bodied receiver from Rock Rapids, 6'4", 207 pounds. We saw it back at Kids Day, and we continue to hear Reese Vanderzee going to be difficult to keep him off the field, and he is listed as one of the backups there at the wide receiver position. Caden Weegan is also out there, the senior walk-on from Williamsburg, and we also have listed Jacob Gill as a starter. He's had a great camp, and we have continued to hear that name really over the last 3 weeks, and just the tremendous upside that he is given and provided to this group, that veteran experience, a guy that has played in the Big Ten and shows up in a big way. Staying on the offensive side of the football, your offensive line, no surprises there. Left tackle, Mason Richmond. Bo Stevens is listed as the starter at the left guard position. At center, it's Logan Jones, Connor Colby at right guard, and Jennings Dunker at right tackle. But a couple of names to keep an eye on, including the backup center. Now, Tyler Ellsbury's done a great job when he has been called upon to play that center position. He is listed as the backup at right guard to Colby, and he is not listed anymore as the backup center. That now goes to Kate Pieper. Heard great things about him a year ago during his redshirt campaign, and he is now listed as the backup center. Leighton Jones, another young guy, a redshirt freshman, is out there. He is listed as a backup at the left guard position. And Michael Mazinski, who was a big prospect coming out of Florida, and offers all over the country. I believe his finalists were Iowa and Texas, if memory serves. This is a guy, though, that's been extremely banged up in his career. Would love to see one of those great stories. And if he can put it all together, stay healthy for a season, that would definitely be a one to keep an eye on. Let's jump over to the defensive side of the football. Not any major surprises up front when you're talking about the front seven. Deontay Craig, your starter on one side, with Ethan Herquette on the other. Your starters at the defensive tackle position, Aaron Graves and Y.A. Black. Max Llewellyn, a backup at left end. Brian Allen, love the name and love what we've seen in the open practices, both spring and Kids Day. He continues to show up. Consistency. That's what we continue to hear about Brian Allen. I think he has a chance, though, to help out being a specialist at rush end, getting out there a lot more on third down situations. I think he's going to be a big help. How about this, though? The cornerback position. So it's been a three-way battle of who's going to be opposite Jamari Harris this season. Deshaun Lee saw a lot of playing time a year ago, started 6 games for the Hawkeyes a season ago. He's the backup to Harris. Your starter at the left corner position is TJ Hall. He was thrust in the spotlight as a true freshman. That's the guy that Iowa got over Michigan out of California, a place that Iowa doesn't normally do a whole lot of fishing, if you will, in the recruiting world. They were able to nab TJ Hall. His introduction was not great. Saw the fastest receiver in the Big Ten blow right by him. His freshman campaign was really banged up a season ago, but he has bounced back, had a great camp, and he wins the starting role over John Nestor at the left corner position. The great news is, though, this team is really 4 deep at the cornerback spot. And that's something that is going to be a great help to this team, mixing and matching. If there are injuries, and there likely will be in the defensive backfield, you can do a whole lot of different things. John Nestor also listed as the backup to Sebastian Castro at the cash position. You know, they talked about Cooper DeJean, and he might have been the best cash guy that they had, but he was so good at cornerback, coupled with what obviously Sebastian Castro was, that they went that direction. Gives them some mixing and matching that they can do. Are really good things to see on that one. Xavier Wampa looks like he's going to be good to go for week 1, as he's battled through some injuries during August camp. Love to see that. And of course, Quinn Schulte backed up by Zach Lutmer at the free safety position. One other angle to this one, and it's something that we were told back I can't remember if it was Big Ten Media Day or Iowa Media Day, whatever it was, but there was talk that Reese Dakin, the newcomer from Australia, likely wasn't going to be the holder this season. They hoped that it was going to be the case, but it was kind of a lot early for him. Well, he is now listed as the starting holder there. Now, it's a great thing because you have your specialists. They're all working together, right? You're doing those kind of things, but you're also putting a lot on the plate of a true freshman. And if we remember back to Tory Taylor, when he was the starter, his first season as a starter, his freshman campaign, well, not only did he do it in 2020 when there were a couple hundred people in the stands as opposed to the 70,000 that are going to be there Saturday, and what he's going to see over the course of the year, going to Columbus with 100,000 nutso Buckeye fans sitting there. It's a different experience than what Tory Taylor had to go through in his freshman campaign. You not only have that angle, but also Reese Dakin, he's a normal freshman. Remember, Tory Taylor was old when he got to Iowa City. This is a guy that was already in his early 20s before he arrived on campus, and definitely a different angle to look at here when you're talking, but he is listed as the holder for place kicking. So that's what we have on that one. Drew Stevens, your starter. We did not get returners on the depth chart. We'll see what that looks like in game number 1. We are getting there. It is game week. So happy to have that, and we will talk about that a little bit more. We continue here, Locked On Hawkeye. Scott Dochterman from The Athletic. Always love our conversations with Doc. We'll do that as we come back. You're listening to the Locked On Hawkeyes Podcast. 5 Hour Energy is the brand hardworking people like you have trusted now for over 20 years to give you alert, energized feelings you need to get through a busy, hectic day. You always know where to find 5 Hour Energy shots, right at the cash register at nearly every convenience, drug, and grocery store nationwide. Stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy shots. Look, I stay up late. I'm a night owl, and with it, a little 5 Hour Energy goes a long way. Absolutely love it to stay up late. Need that boost in the afternoon. 5 Hour Energy is there for me every single time. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB. That's LOCKEDONCFB, and you're going to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Again, that's Locked On CFB to receive 20% off your order for 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com today.
Dochterman from The Athletic. Week 0 behind us. Week 1 kicks off on Thursday night, and Doc joins us. Doc, Trent, Ken, thanks for coming on. Good to speak with you. What do you make, if anything, Doc, of Week 0? Certainly the dogs were barking. I don't know what that means, other than people that bet favorites got clobbered. Florida State was alarming. What do you? Any takeaways from you and what you saw in Week 0?
Obviously, the result involving Florida State was massive. Most people had Florida State as one of the ACC's, it's probably the favorite in the ACC and a likely team to reach the postseason, to reach the playoff, and for them to lose to Georgia Tech. I mean, you can look at it multiple ways. Hey, it's early. They got a long way to go. It's not a big deal. That's a change probably in thought process as compared to 2003 and earlier, but it's also a little bit alarming for the ACC because if Florida State is still one of the best teams in that league, then what does this mean for its at-large opportunities? And I think that's a big factor because if, let's say, Georgia Tech is decent and wins 7 or 8 games, but Florida State goes on and wins the league and maybe has 11 wins, they're like 11-2. That's really going to hurt their opportunity to get an at-large because then they were beaten by, what is perceived to be a middle-of-the-road type of team.
Doc, with that, we look towards this new era of college football, the 12-team playoff, and you have an article up on The Athletic. With the Big Ten finally coming up with tiebreakers, the games are starting. We should probably have that one in the books. I yelled about it all last November. The Big 12 basically made it up on the fly, and tiebreaker scenarios were all over the place. Now, it didn't matter in the 4-team era because it was either Texas or nobody out of that league. This is completely different. Getting into that college football playoff, getting into a conference championship. What did you see from the Big Ten and the way that they laid out the tiebreakers, which I think you're going to see almost on a yearly basis, tiebreakers decide who gets to play for a title?
It's complicated, Trent. It's one that, and I wonder if there'll be many tweaks after the fact, but I can't say that. I mean, when you start to look at, is it just a 2-team head-to-head situation, or are you involving 3 or more? And I laid out the scenario in the story. I don't know if it's posted yet.
It is. Yep.
Okay. Good. Let's say Ohio State runs the table, and there are 3 teams tied for second place between, Oregon, Penn State, and Iowa, and all 3 have only 1 loss, and it all came to Ohio State. They don't play one another. All right, so then you got to start going down the line, and then the next case you start to figure out is, okay, how do they perform against the next best team in the league? And then Michigan would I just threw that out there, like say they're 7-2. Then that would be the next best team, and then they would, Oregon won that game, Oregon would advance. But it is very complicated. There's a lot of scenarios out there. That's kind of the results of what you're getting with out-divisional play, and with an 18-team league, there's just going to be a lot of tie-break situations. I think the benefit now is that with the 12-team playoff, it's not a do-or-die situation. That would have been, if we were talking about this type of scenario 2 years ago, it would have been just, we would really be concentrating on this. And now it's just a scenario where you're going, okay, this matters for who gets into the championship game. But if, like, say, again, 3 teams are all tied at 8-1, the chances are fairly decent that all 3 would end up getting into the playoffs.
Doc, one of the other pieces I really enjoyed, and you told us last week it was going to be up, was you ranked it this century's, I guess, top 50 games in the Big Ten. It had to be an incredibly difficult exercise. You knew everybody was going to absolutely agree with what you put up there when you hit send. Was there one looking back now that maybe either that you missed, or maybe you should have given more credit to?
Probably one, and and when I was debating a lot of these games that were close, there was 3 or 4 that were kind of I was playing with, and one would probably be 2005 Penn State, Ohio State. That seems to be the one that Penn State fans who are known to be wallflowers when it comes to these types of situations really glommed onto, and I'm being facetious, of course. And my scenario with not picking it was a 17-10 game with 1 field goal in the second half, and even though it was matched 2 very, very good teams that were both in the BCS at that time, and it's just as far as games go, maybe it wasn't as memorable, but certainly to one facet of the fan base, it is absolutely memorable. So maybe that's one that I left out on an accident, I would say, but I did have some people, Iowa fans complain Woodshed wasn't in there against Ohio State. I had Purdue fans complaining the game against against Ohio State 18 wasn't in there.
Yep.
Hey, every time somebody beats Ohio State, they think it's in there, and because Ohio State's the dragon, slaying the dragon. And you know what? Those are memorable games, certainly for the fan base, but you could say that they're greatest games in Big Ten history. I don't think so. I tried to do a lot of games that were, close, competitive, went down to the wire, had major ramifications. And not everybody's going to agree, of course. And I accidentally took a peek at some of the comments and went, okay, I better not do that anymore. But overall, I thought I did a pretty good job with it, and it was challenging to rank them all.
The Purdue Ohio State game you're referencing, was that what was the name? Tyler Trent.
Tyler Trent.
Yeah. That was the one he was at, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
That was.
Yep.
Doc, you gave me a little PTSD reading number 11 on your list. Wisconsin 31, Iowa 30, the fake punt heard round the world. That was one of the few times I've ever sat in it's now the old north end zone after it's been refurbished there, and seeing that thing open up right in front of me there. Still, that one. But you talked about the game. 30 NFL players on those 2 rosters. And it felt like for Iowa, certainly a turning point in the program was Wisconsin kind of took what was theirs at that point in time.
That was really a marker of a fork in the road for both programs, if you will, because Iowa had kind of did the better program for a decade going into that. I mean, the year before they won 11 games, the Orange Bowl, and won that, and Wisconsin was with Brett was starting to get better, but Iowa was the stronger program at that point. And then from that moment on, I mean, that was as good of a game as I've ever covered in person. I mean, 8 lead changes, 30 NFL guys, 5 first-rounders, massive plays, game-altering plays at different junctures. But it did kind of symbolize the difference between the two, and it really took about 5, 6, 7, 8 years before Iowa could really get back to being at that level with Wisconsin. And part of that was the ramifications afterwards. Melvin Gordon, a couple weeks later, flipped his commitment from Iowa to Wisconsin. And that really changed it. If you had Melvin Gordon behind Brandon Sheriff, it might be a little bit different scenario in 2014 than what played out.
Interesting. Yeah. J.J. Watt's on that team.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Yeah, that was a really good piece, Doc, going back down memory lane. So, what do you expect this week? For a lot of people, most of the people's eyes are always on the quarterback. But this time, I think this weekend in particular, at least for me, I can't wait to see how McNamara looks. And what is he able to do everything that he's going to be required? Can he move around back there? Is he accurate? What do you anticipate from what we now know will be QB1, as we found out at Ferentz's press conference from last week?
Yeah, that's going to be the real key. I think everybody's eyes are going to be on that. I mean, it's kind of an interesting weekend with Iowa without Kirk Ferentz and with having, the quarterback situation, which I think we all kind of anticipated was at least early that might be such a serious scenario regarding his press conference. You want to see accuracy, first of all. You want to see him on target. That was something that was not established in the open practice opportunity that we had. It's been a little bit better in the weeks to follow, but it hasn't been great either, at least as far as I've heard. But I guess that's where I want to start with him. And, and from there, you want to see some other situations. What can he do in third downs? Can he scramble? Can he operate on the fly? And then the offense as a whole, I think we're all going to be watching that. And then, Seth Wallace, this will be his first game kind of leading the program, probably first of many, because I would assume that whether he's with Iowa or another program at some point, he's going to be a head coach, I think, fairly soon. I think within the next 4 to 5 years. Interesting.
Scott Dochterman joining us from The Athletic. Doc, where are you with this season? It's been a long summer, a lot of expectation for this team and the program. Schedule has something to do with it. Are you of the belief that this is ultimately going to be a college football playoff team, or at least on the conversation for it? Where'd you sit? Have you made your official season prediction?
It's difficult to kind of project Iowa in some ways. I actually have a game before that. I'm going to Minnesota on Thursday.
Nice.
But with Iowa, I do think that they have playoff potential. I think that defense is still as good, if not better, than last year. I think they need to get make sure they have a pass rusher and be a little bit more disruptive there. But overall, I do think the offensive line is much improved. I think they got a great tight end, one of the best in the country. We got, they've got several good running backs. It's ultimately it's going to be about, though, can they separate from their peer teams? And Wisconsin's one that I think is going to be better. And when Wisconsin comes here, we talked about the 2010 game. What kind of Wisconsin team are you going to get? You got to win those games. And Iowa, I kind of put them in this back and forth of they could be 11-1 or they could be 7-5. Last year was the year where they won a lot of the close games. Next year or this year, can they beat them? Well, it really depends on the quarterback play. If Iowa's quarterback play can be consistent, then I think Iowa has every opportunity to go 11-1, end up in the playoff, maybe even win a playoff game or so. But if not, it could be 7-5, and then the future is right in front of you like a semi truck. Then you're wondering, all right, how much longer can Kirk Ferentz do this? You've got to lose a tired defense. You got new quarterbacks. You got a lot of offensive linemen leaving. Then you look at what's next on the plate. Is this looking at the end of the 90s, like what faced Hayden Fry? Otherwise, It's hard to say. But I think I actually do believe the program's in a good, healthy place. But those close games are what's going to matter. And we know at Iowa, they play a lot in the margins.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Scott Dochterman from The Athletic joining us here on the show today. Always appreciate hearing from Scott Dochterman. Great insight on the football program, and he's exactly right. The close games, as they seemingly always do for Iowa football, going to determine if this is going to be a very successful season or if we're going to have some frustrations here in 2024. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Appreciate each and every one of you being with us throughout the course of the college football season. And with college football being back, it's not too late to catch up before the season kicks off. SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, you can get it all from Locked On stable of college experts by subscribing to the Locked On College Football Podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoff? What teams will cause chaos in their new conferences? Everything you need to know in one place. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Locked On College Football Podcast, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We got you covered on the Hawkeye front. We'll talk a little bit more football, obviously, coming up throughout the course of this week. Got to make my season prediction, go on record and see exactly how good it can be. And my season predictions have been pretty good in the past. We'll see if we can continue that. Well, let's hope it happens with a good record predicted out of your boy TC here. Thanks for being with us as always. Locked On Hawkeyes, your team every day. We got a lot more coming up for you throughout the course of this weekend. Potential some big news maybe coming down the pike here. We'll keep an eye on that one and what we're doing here on the daily feed of Locked On Hawkeyes. Thanks for being with us as always. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Hawks.